Welcome back to Late Night at the Barcade. This is episode 5, I think. Maybe? Yeah, this is episode 5. You may be wondering, why is this not the finale? Why is it not titled the finale? Well, look, a bunch of shit's going on, alright? Let me fucking mansplain for a second, alright? Turns out, I do have the job, but the time in which the job start has now been pushed to next year, February. So technically, the finale's not happening anymore. Sorry for those who wanted this whole thing to end. It's unfortunately still gonna go on for the next forever. So yeah, you've got maybe another, I don't know, 8 more episodes from me. Maybe a little bit more. It depends on, you know, where I get the energy from. Because I'll tell you something about this particular episode. I recorded this late last night, and it was shit. And then I recorded it again this morning, and it was shit. And now I'm recording it again, and I think it's going to be shit again. But, you know, the unfortunate thing when making a podcast is that at some point you have to realize that even if it's shit, you still have to create it. So we've got a lot of topic points today. I forgot the actual intro. It's me, your host, Jhon. Welcome back to Late Night at the Barcade. This is episode 5, not the finale, but we will get into why that's not the case. We've got a bunch of topic points today. We're finally talking about Cheers culture. I've been alluding to it for the past fucking 4 episodes. I'm actually talking about it this time because I'm running out of topics. Why am I running out of topics? Because the finale is actually happening in a couple of days, and I need an episode out now. Anyway, that's not even what we're talking about. Light and Dark Triad. Do you know what that is? I don't know, but I'm talking about it. Guys who troll, you know, VRchat trolls, we're going to talk about them tonight, because I think I could talk about them for 30 minutes, get that all done. We're talking about some personal stories. Someone in the comment about a year ago with the original podcast asked me to talk about personal stories more. So this is the first ever personal story, I think. I don't really know. I might have talked about it before. We're talking about LARPing, all right? And then parasocial relationships, how to get in touch. And then we're talking about next week, the co-guest, because we may probably, hopefully, depending on what goes on, have a guest. Maybe 2. I need to check in with another one of the guests. Technically, it wouldn't be next week for you. It would be the week after, but whatever, dude. This is happening. We're doing this. Late Night at the Barcade, episode 5. Can you tell I'm stalling? Let's get right into things. The Light and Dark Triad. I swear I'm not talking about no Illuminati fucking crappy bullshit things, alright? There has been a trend going on, a very small trend, on TikTok and on YouTube and on whatever fucking autistic fucking shit that's going on the internet. In the internet, there has been a trend called the Light or Dark Triad bullshit. It's the same thing, right? It's this triangle, and on each side there's a different political fucking view. For the light, I think it's like something to do with faith in humanity, something X, Y, and Z, being a good person, yada yada. And then on the other side there's this dark triad, which is a dark triangle, and on each side is a different thing, a different political opinion or fucking mental thing. I don't know, okay? Can you tell I don't research these things? I just see them and fucking get onto it. But the thing about this, and why I want to talk about it, is the weird, you know, connection this weird dark triad, fucking light triad shit has with this over hyperization, that's a fucking word. I have a podcast, I should be better than this. Anyway, this overhyping of, you know, these good figures and these evil figures and these doing good versus doing bad. I'm sure you must have seen it, you know, throughout your time on the internet, but people love to create these kind of edits and these shorts and these, you know, these things about like being a good person or being an evil person. You know, I'm sure if what is the big kind of evil guy that's been going around that everyone's fucking into? when it came out. It's like this Judge Hold'em guy, this weird skinny man, a skin man, whatever it's called. And like Arthur Morgan or X, Y, and Z, and they'll have these edits that are, you know, let's take for instance Arthur Morgan, and it's this edit of Arthur Morgan shooting a guy in the head, or the Punisher shooting a guy in the head, and there's some cool badass music that goes chow 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 chow, and then, you know, it does scenes and scenes of him killing people because that's cool and evil is being cool, you know. It's really this new wave fucking like super gritty rock wave that's happening now in the new universe. What am I saying? The new generation. That's how the new generation's fucking cool rock grunge scream metal shit, right? Is this overhyping of these evil fucking characters who just love killing and doing X, Y, and Z and being evil. And on the other side, as people are, you know, overhyping with the rise of Christianity and or Christian values and you know, the rise of the internet, those two things kind of intermingle in a really weird, interesting way. I'm sure you guys might know what fucking Vinland Saga is, but when that came out, there was a huge surge in these little communities of people getting into Christianity and X, Y, and Z, because with Christianity comes, to a degree, based on, you know, I'm just overlining, I'm not getting into religion. What comes with it is these values of being a better person, love thy neighbor, X, Y, Z, right? And because of that, because you've got kids who love their little edits, you now are getting these edits of, you know, Jesus waking up to, and then a verse that says judiciary D16 in the Bible, love thy neighbor, and then they'll have Thorfinn and some other like really positive, nice guy, or they'll have a scene of some guy doing something good, and they'll have this weird edit music. I'm sure you've seen it. It'll be like Evergreen comes up. And of course I know what this is, because I'm fucking ingratiated with the community. I listen to their shit. I like the music. Kill me, strike me, crucify me. I like the music from these edits. Because I'm a little chud rat. I'm a little child. But what's coming of that now is this weird light and dark triad things, which are these like triangle things. And some guy will have their edit, which is very similar to this either evil edit or this very good edit, and it will have this triangle, and it will be like, these are the dark triads, these are the light triads, you know, these are the cool guys, these are the bad guys. And it's you'll go into the comments, and it will be, let's take for instance one of the bad guy, the dark triad shit, right? You go into the comments, and in the comments you'll have, you know, 10 children fucking putting in their little messages that this fucking like preposterous doomerism take on how the world sucks and how being evil's cool. And I'm not making this up. These are in the comments. You can go to any one of these things and you'll see people in the comments saying, you know, when they strike down a little homie like me, that's when we get our fucking revenge. Dark Triad, Dark Triad. Like we're in some fucking stupid little gang, right? You know, and these... just the fact that these kids get on these TikToks, on these shows, not the shows, on these like shorts, and, you know, it's, to them, it's this pseudo intellectualism, right? Where it's, oh, I understand a basis of philosophy, therefore I can talk about it. The philosophy of X, Y, and Z. And I've seen so like a greater trend of people now going online with these very small ideas of, you know, what they think life is from their very, very small perspective of being a child, and going online doing debates about how Darwinism is an actually good thing. You know, we should, the strong are weak and we are strong. I'm so mentally fucking handicapped that I can't understand that this mentality is based on my very small, very negative, very delusional perspective. But, you know, these people will come together, particularly in the comments of these shorts, and will spill this kind of, and they'll spill this philosophy, and they'll talk about, and I say philosophy very loosely because it is just very strange opinions on philosophy. Because, you know, that's the coolest thing right now. Because everyone wants to be a Marcus Aurelius type who talks about sovereign fucking observation or whatever the fuck. And being a good person, I think. I haven't read the book. I have the book. I have Meditations, and I haven't read it because what's the word? Oh yeah, because I'm a performative male who needs to read X, Y, and Z books because I'm so philosophically inclined. Because, you know, look, we will get to a point in our minds and our lives, right, where, you know, we do to a degree have to understand our own morals and our own beliefs on the world in order to better understand ourselves, right? That is a perfectly normal thing, and people have been doing that for time ad memoriam, right? You know, understanding oneself and one's place in the world is such a normal thing, such a human thing. But, you know, it's very easy, because I've been in those positions from time to time, you know, very easy to get in these mindsets that doing evil is normal. Like, that evil is around us at all times, therefore we should be the most evil people we can be, right? And it's this trend that is growing more and more. That's been growing since the early 20th century. I talked about it in the last episode, right? And stop saying you know, it is this sense of these philosophies that come out with these edits and these children that are like consuming this content, right? And you have people in the comments doing X, Y, and Z, and to a degree, people are taking in very negative stereotypes and very negative perspectives from these other people, and they're turning it into their own view, and they're trying to understand that. Because, you know, people are confused, children are confused when it comes to a lot of things, right? We all are. You know, that confusion never really goes away. You learn some things, you forget some things, you have to continue learning, and unfortunately, there are those who see their stages of learning, right? Learning about their political opinions and X, Y, and Z, and are, you know, spilling that around as if that is the fact. And so we're creating these environments and these things where we're now talking about how being an asshole and thinking about just yourself is actually good. You know, it reminds me of a situation. I was talking to some guy. This is years and years and years and years ago, right? And I remember this to this day because it was a very interesting conversation I was having. I think this was when I was in university, right? And I was talking to this guy. He was complaining. We were at a club, and he was complaining like, "Oh, dude, I just fucking hate life." And I said, "Okay, well, clearly you're putting me in a situation where I have to ask you what's up. But whatever." You know, I was very open to this guy. I was a bit of an asshole. Sure, I'll agree, you know. And he was going on, you know, "Oh, my life sucks, X, Y, and Z." And then he's just started saying the N-word. And I was like, "Dude, that's you know, don't say that. That's incredibly offensive. I know you think you're being funny, but it's not." And he's like, "I don't care. I can use this word if I want. I don't really care what other people think." And I said to him, "That's a very toxic viewpoint." And, you know, there are times in life where you realize having an argument with someone is kind of a waste of time, especially if you can tell that person there's no real need to talk to that person. To a degree, understanding that and still talking to the person to try and better them is, you know, it's an admirable thing. But, you know, in this moment, I was, you know, drunk. Well, not really drunk. I had a couple to drink, and I wanted to talk to this guy to hear about his story. And in my naivety, I thought I could change whatever he was going through. And this is years and years and years ago, right? And he goes on and he keeps talking about things and why him saying the N-word is, fine, because he just doesn't care about people anymore. And I said, why is that the case? And he's like, everyone's an asshole. Everyone treats me like shit, and this is the kind of life that I have been shown, and this is the life I want to live because it makes me comfortable. And, it was in this conversation that I said, look, you're very pathetic. And I'm like, well, you understand that by having this opinion, right? By speaking this way, you inadvertently are bringing that onto you, right? You're bringing people who are going to be assholes into your life because you are an asshole, right? Like, good people don't want to surround themselves with terrible people, right? And he fully understood that, but to him, he didn't want to change. To him, this was his viewpoint he found himself in, and he didn't want to budge, right? He understood that him taking advantage of people was just what he perceived everyone else did. And he didn't want to listen to the fact that that wasn't the case. And I realized in that conversation there wasn't much that I could say to him, because fundamentally he believed so ill of the people around him that there was no room to change. And perhaps I could have fought harder, maybe, but we can't win the battles we don't fight, and we can't feel bad about the battles that haven't been fought. A little bit of psychology mumbo jumbo there, because I'm such a fucking intelligent bee. Fucking hell. The moral of this is to say, just, when it comes to these pseudo-political opinion, not political, so pseudo philosophical opinions of things, it's not innately wrong, right? To a degree, you have to learn these things, but it gets very toxic, just like I had mentioned in the last episode, right? It gets very toxic when these communities are talking to one another and spilling the same bullshit, and it is this constant fucking wheelhouse of more bile and more bile and more bile, and these people are digesting it without actually really understanding themselves, without taking the step back to really dive into what they mean, what they believe, and what they understand. Because I think so rarely do we preach internal observation that it creates situations where these kids are out there, these people, not just kids, these are people who are, are trying to understand themselves, but they don't understand what's inside. They don't take a step back and understand what makes them function and the environment in which they find themselves in, right? To what degree do outside sources affect their opinions? And it's hard, right? I'm not a perfect fucking individual when it comes to that. Let's take any situation. I had a fucking argument with my parents a bit ago, and I sat there and realized, look, although I've done all of this fucking understanding of my own self, at times that it's the execution that's really hard, right? But very rarely do people get to that stage where it's the execution. A lot of people find themselves in the stage of, this is our fucking philosophical viewpoint, and that's it. We take one. Like, I remember in university we had, and this is about politics, but well, not about politics, but is the talking of politics, and it's very similar with philosophy. We had a university lecture where this guy, this is in a room of about 100, maybe 200 people, is talking about, like, your political opinions, and he did this survey of people's opinions politically. And he said, and everyone put their hands up for what they were. At the time I thought I was a centrist, because I was more politically involved at the time. you know, and people were like, well, we believe in communism and on X, Y, and Z, because it's a big crowd of weird individuals. There were people who believed in Darwinism and X, Y, and Z. And, you know, it was interesting to talk about it because, you know, this guy, he outlines how different our political opinions change and how, you know, to a degree, our political opinions do do influence our morals, and our morals influence our political opinions about things. And you know, he was able to identify how much, you know, all these outside sources, your the point in which you find yourself in your life, the people you surround yourself with, have a huge impact on your political opinions and your morals. And if we're talking about morals, then, you know, at to a degree, your philosophy. And you know, it creates this, because with the internet, it creates a situation where it's a lot more volatile, right? It's a lot more not in terms of the content, right? In terms of the amount of information you're getting and the different kinds of information you're getting, right? And I'm sure these conversations have been said by boomers forever, and fucking people have been complaining, but I'm talking about particularly in this light and dark triad shit, right? About being a good person, overhyping being a good person, or overhyping being a bad person, right? Is because we surround ourselves with these people, with these groups. It has such a weird impact on everything about us, right? Because your philosophy and your political opinions do have an impact on your entire life, right? Particularly your mentality and your morals, right? And it's so interesting how people will take the information they see from this, like, it's so cool to be dark. I'm Kira from fucking Death Note, you know? And they'll look at this and they'll say this is the coolest shit ever, right? And they'll so easily digest this without really allowing this to impact their fucking mentality and morals, without actually taking a step back and understanding who you are. And look, to a degree, in order to make this happen, you have to go out of your way to do something like this, right? You have to go out of your way to look at yourself, look inwards, and understand. And to a degree, you know, you'll be faced with so much in your life that makes you question these things, and so much in your life will change, and the people in your life will change you. But I think for people like this who are looking at the dark and dryad bullshit and all these edits, this should not be one of the things that impacts you, you know, because it's coming from a place that is not beneficial for you, that is full of so much bias and so much strife, that if you just let your life live, right, and you took your opinions from your experiences and the experiences of others in a way that wasn't targeted to this light side, to this dark side, to this evil side, then you'd find yourself a lot more spiritually healthy, you know? Because it's when you digest this stuff and when you get into this mind frame is when it starts having a really bad toll on your mental, right? I'll give you an example, right? When I very, very early on in this year, I had a really bad mental episode when I seriously considered, you know, I saw the life around me and, you know, the situation I found myself in, and I questioned my own morality in a world where I thought everyone, you know, outside of my immediate circle was this, you know, I wanted to have a meaning and a purpose, and I didn't have that. So I pushed from ideas that would in concept give me happiness, but the execution was always very terrible, if that makes sense. Not that I would act upon this, but it was a very ill thing to be thinking about, right? A good example that I agreed a lot of was Darwinism. At a point in time, I considered Darwinism as a pretty efficient way of the world. You know, a very poor mental situation, of course. And, you know, what came out of that was me understanding how poor that was and realizing, you know, that this was a product of, you know, a long time of a lack of sleep a bad situation I had found myself in, and surrounding myself with a very particular, very bad person, who I'm not going to get into to talk about because I don't want to make this whole channel about it, right? But you find yourself in these situations, and I think it's very important if you are someone who, from anything that I've said in this particular one segment, has sat there and realized, hey, maybe I might be exhibiting this. Take a step back and assess what stuff you're digesting, right? Because it's really important. It's really, really important to do that. And I found so much more joy from doing that. And I've known friends, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, is doing the exact same thing. And she is having a much better time than she has that I've seen her have for, years now. And I'm really proud of her. Will I say her name and X, Y, and Z? No, 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 no. But it is. Stop saying Jesus Christ. it is when you understand these situations and these negative things in your life, and you're able to push yourself away from that and understand that it's bad for you, or just understand. It's where you get you are able to spiritually heal yourself in a way, because you do a lot of damaging when you're experiencing all of this bullshit. To a degree, I think I even have this with my own mentality at times, because I do digest a lot of this light and dark triad bullshit, and when I'm unable to take this stuff and understand that I'm looking at it for the fact of I want to talk about how bad it is, sometimes it rubs off. I mean, the saying, when you stare into darkness and it stares back, is a very true thing. And for a lot of others, that rubs off. This is the first time I'm ever going to have a proper segue, right? So this is the greatest time. And for many, when they do stuff like this, right? When they start investigating this dark stuff, these poor mindsets, it rubs off. And unfortunately, you have that with, trolls on the internet, with investigators on the internet, just like my next topic point, talking about trolls on VRchat. Booyah! I'm the greatest podcaster of all time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next topic point. Guys who troll, right? I've been seeing a huge flux, well, I have been for the past 2 years, of trollers online. For those who do not know what VRchat is this site in which a bunch of communities get together and are able to talk in a virtual setting. Very simple, very basic. Bunch of shit goes on. You have a bunch of mentally ill individuals and a bunch of individuals who suck and who are doing weird things. It's the internet. These things do happen. It's not good, but they do happen. And because of this, you have these individuals who come in to do a bunch of trolling. You may have heard the names Proximity Chat, and I don't know who else. We're not talking about Proximity Chat here. But you also have people who come in not to troll, but to investigate. As you've had time in memoriam, there are those who seek to be vigilantes in the field of evil. Take, for instance, fucking, like, the EDP situation. If, for anyone who doesn't know, Eat That Pussy 445, I used to love him as a kid. Turns out he's a pedophile. But the thing is, with these vigilantes at the time, I'm going to be very brief about the EDP situation, is that because they were vigilantes rather than working with actual law enforcement, the guy got away. Although he is kicked out of many of his jobs and people are going out of his way to ruin his life, he did get away with being a pedophile, right? And perhaps in his time doing very terrible things. And so, these people who believe themselves vigilantes and doing good things go on these sites and on these groups, to troll, but to also, investigate these really bad fucking things that are going on. The trouble is not them, right? People who troll is, it's whatever. You make money doing what you do. It's a whole medium to make money. And for investigators, they do it for, morally good reasons. and often, are able to help a lot of people. The two troubles is that when these people do these things, they incite a lot of people to do the same. Vigilantes, people doing good things, often, as well as doing bad things, right? Two things, trolling and fucking trying to investigate for good reasons, often exhibit others to do the same, right? Or influence others to do the same. Even if that's not what they're trying to do, it's what happens. There's no, like, fucking way you can say that doesn't, and there's no way you can say that these things don't influence, because they do. I've seen many people in my time online who want to investigate and find the evils and discover the evils, and who like trolling to make it fun. I was like that as a kid. I saw trollers online, and I wanted to replicate. And so in between the times of me role playing, I would jump on and fucking troll some people, right? Because that's what I thought fun. And, was I good at it? Fuck, I don't know. I don't really remember. That's besides the point, right? When you have these people come in to do these things, let's take trolling, for instance, they find these funny situations from hours of searching and finding people, and are able to get so much content out of them that often people are so entertained they want to do it themselves. And you've seen, and you will see in these environments and these people, this great wave of particularly children coming in to, and interacting with very, very bad people, because that's often who they're targeting, in order to, get a rise out of them, to have fun. The problem is, these children are often very ill-equipped to, in these situations, to deal with manipulation, to deal with toxic people, and often, very toxic adults who are able to manipulate these kids into bad situations. And with this rise of trolls has also been a rise of children doing this. And as I mentioned before, when, one stares into darkness, often it, stares back. And with these children, it does the same thing. You hear situations of kids who are going online trolling, trying to find these terrible people, and falling victim to these people. And this is not to say I'm here to stop trolling or to stop fucking vigilantes and investigating things, right? I think a lot of people do good by not showing the names of individuals and blurring it out. There's been an ever increase in that, and I think that's a great thing. But it still doesn't stop children from trying, right? Especially on sites like VRchat, who, although they say they don't allow children, they don't stop children. They don't have a fucking 18 plus system, which they probably should have. And the problem of that is that you do create these situations where these are, where these kids are finding themselves in these horrible situations. And sometimes they're trying to do it for good, right? They're trying to investigate. They want to be the next investigator who are able to find terrible things and have, these moments saying, "Ha ha, I got you." People want that. They want to experience that. And, there is, to a degree, it's an admirable, right? But this should be left to those with the capacity to actually do something, right? It's hard to engage with a troll and be like, yeah, well, you should really not be, because there was a guy that I was watching, because I was having something to eat. I was eating dinner and I wanted to watch this in preparation for the podcast. There was this guy who was doing a troll, and then some children come up recognizing him. And instead of being like cutting it out of the video, he kept it in. And at the very end was like, send me fan mail. And one of the fan mail he had was just this kid, this drawing obviously done by a child, right? And to what degree do you understand that if you have a child audience, you mustn't encourage them to have this kind of parasocial relationship and start doing what you're doing? Because I saw in the video that, these kids were trying to troll. that they were in this weird age regression thing, which I guess I haven't talked about yet. I don't really have many many opinions about it, but maybe at some point I'll talk about it. But it's so, you're such a fucking idiot if you're sitting there understanding your audience of children and not giving a fuck that they're doing the same thing to others, right? And look, I don't expect many people to have that much empathy or to understand the degree of their actions and what it does, right? And how it impacts others, right? Not everyone knows that. Not everyone gets that. But, you know, it's the situation that you're putting these children in that is not healthy. You've got to stop it. And if you're investigating evil people, you need to highlight it in a way that doesn't make it fun, right? I'll take another instance. I'm not going to be naming these people, of course, but there was this investigator who was investigating this like terrible community of people, and in one of the interviews they had, the character was, or the person, the interviewer, the investigator, I'll call them investigator for just the ease of there not being a better word, sat down, and the way in which they were investigating was this trolling and bullying of the person to force out a confession, right? And clearly the person was laughing and having fun and enjoying what they're doing, but the adverse effect of that, right, was creating a situation where, you know, you would look in the comments and children were like, this is the funniest thing ever, I'm gonna try that, right? I want to do stuff like that when I get older. You know, you've really got to be careful, and these trolls and these investigators just aren't. You know, and everyone's human, everyone fucks up, right? Now and again. I 100% understand that, but it's still happening. You know, we're still having situations where people are trolling and investigating and not actually putting in they'll put their little disclaimer at the top of the video to be like, this is don't do this at home. I'm an adult. If you're under the age of 18, don't do this. You know, it's to save their own skin, but to a degree, you gotta do more than that, man. I know it's not easy, right? To a degree, this show has the adverse effect of making it okay to, or someone's gonna look at it and it's gonna make it, and they're gonna think it's okay to be this way for these particular people, right? But this is a different medium. It's a lot harder to make a podcast than it is to just put on a fucking YouTube and troll someone, right? And, you know, a lot of what I'm saying is about this bad behavior and making you understand how fucking stupid you are, right? If you are a guy or girl and you are a troll on VRchat or an investigator, I don't care what you do it for fun. I 100%. You got to make money somehow, right? It's a perfectly understandable thing. And it's really difficult when you're in YouTube, when you are a troller, to you know, add these extra precautions, because, you know, it is a very stressful job. You're trying to get day by day and have to do your episodes. But I think, you know, to a degree, you're doing a lot more good by just doing the basics. A lot of people don't show the names of the characters. I think that's great. Some people don't even show the avatars. I think that's great as well. But, you know, because a lot of people are able to track by avatar in a very weird way. But I think it's the framing of things and understanding when you're doing something like this, you have to put a little bit more precaution in from stopping people from doing this, right? Understanding if you have a child audience, that, you know, trolling is your bread and butter. There's nothing you can change. And I am not the one to tell you how to run it, right? But you gotta do something to change. If you're not, you're gonna create situations where children are finding themselves in these really poor, really, really bad situations, right? And enough said of that. I've got fucking people are messaging me on my phone. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get into how to get into touch, right? This is my favorite segment of the day, of the session of the podcast, where I say how to get in touch, right? if you want to get in touch, you want to ask me some questions, maybe have me talk on the pod. If you've got things you want to talk about, if want to say on for me to, what am I saying? Hold up. If you want me to say things, right, or bring up your emails, send me over an email at latenightbarcade@gmail.com. That's latenightbarcade@gmail.com. For some reason, right, I have this old email address on my notes, and every single fucking time I ruin it. It's not gonna happen again. It's latenightbarcade@gmail.com. If you're a friend of mine, I know you've seen the last episode where I called you out. I haven't received a goddamn email, alright? This might scare you off from sending emails, but I'll fucking let you know. I don't care. Send me an email at latenightbarcade@gmail.com. That's latenightbarcade@gmail.com, alright? At one point, we'll get some emails in, and we'll actually have some time to talk about it on the pod. We're about 50 minutes in. We've got a couple things to talk about, but for one more little topic point, I will talk about the finale that was supposed to happen last week. Sorry, a spider just crawled on me. God! I'm so unprofessional. I'm hungry. I'm starving. You need to eat. I need to finish this fucking podcast so I can get somebody to eat. Holy shit. Right, so next episode that will come out. So this episode will hopefully come out. I'm hoping and praying to work and get this stuff edited by the end of the day, which is really tough, right? But if I crunch things down, it'll be fine, okay? We'll be able to do it, and I'm hoping we do. But we have another episode, which is not going to be the finale anymore because of a bunch of situations going on. But we will have our first episode with guests. Yes. Finally, you don't have to hear me in my fucking ugly voice talking about shit while I breathe in the mic like a diabetic. But we'll have some individuals coming on with questions. We'll have some themes. We'll have some stuff going on. I think we'll be drinking, which will be interesting to see how that works. I'm hoping to do it in the evening after I work out. So, you know, there's that to look forward to, I guess. But yeah, we've got guests coming on for the next episode, which will be a lot of fun. We'll be talking about what co-guest hosts are. I guess I can talk about it now. One of the ideas I have for this show is something called a co-guest host, right? They are individuals who show up, and for now they won't have like any contracts or anything because, you know, if I'm leaving in February, it's going to be very hard to do things, but they are people who are co-guest hosts. They are not, we will ask them questions about who they are, X, Y, and Z, but primarily they are an extra host to the show. They're not going to show up every day, but I'm hoping to get them on maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year, every now and then. If I ever do a Patreon or any kind of subscription service, none of the guests will be exclusive to the Patreon, so it will be a public thing for everyone to see. But I do want these kind of recurring characters to come back into the show, and it makes it easier for me if in one day, like today, I'm struggling to fucking make an episode, right? And I'm saying these points over and over again, and I'm talking to pace more time, right? Makes it easier. And, you know, these people know full well how the podcast works. It's going to be a bit tricky. One of the individuals we have on between you and me, and don't tell them, used to be a individual who was part of the first ever show I ever did of Late Night at the Barcade. You know, I've alluded to this before. The show's been around for technically 4 years. And in the first year, well, the second year, rather, she was our first ever host, co-guest host. And the episode was great. We had a bit of iffy problems, and we've got a lot more, you know, what to do, what to not do, and we'll see how it goes with the episode. I may have to cut the entire thing. We'll have to see. You'll find out when the episode comes out, or if it doesn't. But, you know, we're gonna have this great show together. It will be great. We'll have our first fucking guest, and it'll be a good time, and I'm hoping you'll be there for, not the finale, but I'm going to be calling it the finale, technically. For the clicks, man. Alright, anything for views, dude. But yeah, that'll be the finale coming up, hopefully next week, depending on when this episode comes out. This may take me a lot longer to do, but we're now at the 48-minute mark, and I would like to get to an hour, and we've got a couple of topic points that I haven't brought up yet, but, you know, depending on how things go, we'll talk about it, all right? Let me have a sip of my coffee. Oh, that thing's gone cold. Great, we love this. Right, let me sit you down. Let me play a little hypothetical, because I like my hypotheticals. It's been a long week, right? You've thought about to yourself for a long time, you know, you've really wanted to get into streaming, into YouTube, into making videos, but you know, your typical 9 to 5 has made it really, really hard, right? And you've just come back from work, and you know, it's another tough day. You don't have the energy to produce content anymore. It's been a couple of months now, about 4, maybe 5 since the last episode, and it did really well, but you just haven't had the time to really sit down and make the video. You were able to find time to record something. You were able to find time to edit a little bit of it, but you know, the thumbnail still has to be made. You still have to do a bunch of extra things. You still have to make some shorts. It's a lot of work, and you just don't have the energy. And so as you typically do, you make yourself a microwave meal, and me talking about this meal right now is making me fucking hungry. Anyway, you make yourself your microwave meal, you take off your stinky clothes, you chuck it into a pile. You know, it's a cold night. You're putting on something new to wear, and you're taking a seat, right? You just want to eat. You want to take a shower. You want to clean your clothes, maybe clean up your house a little bit, and then go to bed. And you go online, and you see this new wave of popularity. You see this title that says, "These LARPers are crazy." And you don't quite understand. You know, LARP to you meant live action roleplay, but these people are using it in such a strange way, you know, and you're investigating it more. You're getting more and more into your meal. It's nearly done, and you're going into more of these shorts and more of these, you know, episodes regarding LARPing, and you come to realize that these people are using this weird word as LARP to describe people who are, you know, are trying to be something they're not, right? It's a strange thing. You don't know where it started. You understand where LARP came from, but not particularly the context in which it's being used now, right? It's very confusing. And so you dive deeper, and you start seeing these weird YouTubers named LARPaplier, LARPcepticeye, LARPdepie, Pie de LARP. You know, it's these weird plays on characters and individuals. And what you're noticing is that these individuals, because people love to digest this weird slop, and maybe you don't realize it yet, these individuals are making so much money and getting so many views. This LARPaplier guy has over 100,000 subscribers. And he's not necessarily funny, but he's playing this character. And so you get it in your head that you can put on a funny voice. You can play this funny character. And you put on the mic. You record yourself, a very quick thing. You play your favorite character. Tobuscus, the favorite Minecraft YouTuber that you were as a kid. You name a channel. You don't have many. You have the one that you have now that hasn't been working well, but you name a new one, Labuscus. You go into Photoshop, you take the Tobuscus fucking profile pic, and you change some colors. You invert the colors. You change the banner, and you post your first video on the same, you know, video that's been made by Tobuscus. You're just talking over it, and you're doing this voice, this very shitty impression. And you post it. It's around about 10 p.m. now. You spent a long time. You're tired. You've gone back to bed. You put minimal effort into it. And when you wake up in the morning, you see hundreds of thousands of likes, comments, and engagement. People are begging you for a part 2. They love the fact that you're LARPing. They love this. They love the bile. You've understood this is a trend, and you continue it. You play this character. No longer do you care about making your own content, the content that you can enjoy. You have been enthralled with this idea of easy content, easy money, easy engagement. You need only play this character and play into a voice and make very minimal edits to a stupid video. And to you, you don't really care anymore. You know, the fact that you're not making, you know, your own content doesn't matter. Making this slop is getting you clicks, is getting you money. You're now able to take a step back, and you're able to do this full time by playing this character. And you've interacted with other people who are also LARPing, and you're starting to create a LARPing community, and people online are starting to do tier lists of their LARPing YouTubers. LARP Critical is now on the fucking channel. He's this big guy now, this big LARP YouTuber. He's coining the term LARP tubers, and you're making more money, and sooner or later you forget that in all of this time, when the trend starts dying down, that you didn't have much to give. The LARP trend has started to fade, and you see this channel with so many views, and you try to do something different. And sure, for the first episode, you got maybe 10K followers, 10K comments and views. And then it starts dwindling down. And this job, this career of yours, you start hating. You start having vitriol for the content you're making, because it's not your content. It is a impression of someone else's content. Someone else has put in the hard effort, and you are merely benefiting off that engagement. And before you can realize it, it's too late. You've lost everything that made your channel yours. And because you left your job, and it's been a while now, you struggle to get it back. You struggle to find your way back into the life, and you come back to this old channel, and you try your best, but it doesn't work, because you haven't formed a community. You've formed a community of people of like-minded individuals who liked this character you were playing, but not you. And before it's too late, you've failed. Your channel dies out with all the other LARP tubers, and you know, there are those who made it work, but you were not one who could. And you go back to your 9 to 5. And you miss being able to make this content. You miss the train. And never again will it start up. That's LARP tubing. And I'm here to announce I'm becoming a LARP tuber, right? I need the clicks. I need the money, okay? You know, Swagger Souls? That's me now. I'm gonna be Swagger LARP, LARP Souls, whatever the fuck you want to call them. That'll be me, because it's easy and it's good for views, right? It is the stupidest fucking trend that's going around now, where people are starting to, you know, have this LARPing fucking community going on, because it's so very easy to get views, because, you know, people love to digest shit, and because they love digesting shit, they go to these weird LARP things, and because it's so fucking good for them, it's so much shit, they love it. It's just like the 6-7 meme. It's just like the Light and Dark Triad. It's easy bullshit to fucking enjoy, right? And because people are doing it and making these characters and, you know, creating old beef that was once there, you know, there are people who are playing like the iDubbbz versus Luffy fucking bits going, Luffy versus Leafy bits that are going down, you know, and they're doing all this LARP shit. And it is is quite entertaining from an outside looking in, but it's such a, maybe I'm just jealous. Maybe I'm just a little chud who, because I don't get the same amount of views as these stupid LARP tubers that don't put any fucking effort in what they do, right? They just play off the backs of someone else. That's why I'm fucking mad. I'm annoyed, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm a fucking chud who loves Hatsune Miku. Right? And it's this trend now that is so fucking popular, and because it's getting more popular, more people are making videos about it, and more people are fucking enjoying the content, and, you know, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Animators who join this animator trend are now becoming LARP animators, whatever the fuck that's called. LARP tubers are what they call it. And people online are saying everyone's LARPing now. There are those who are not even making LARPing content who are being called LARPers. And I'm starving and I need something to eat. Oh my god, I need to finish this point so I can eat. It's this strange fucking trend. And people are really buying into it. And there are those who are very rightfully annoyed at the fact that, you know, people are stealing their content to a degree, and not really doing anything with it. You know, it's the same with those who try to animate, who don't know how to animate, yet want to join it because of the trend, or those who do know how to animate it and who are joining because it's a trend, right? Because when these trends come up, you have those who come out of the limelight and try to do the same thing, but for the wrong reasons, right? There are people when this trend started who were doing it just to play a character, to make fun of certain individuals. I mean, there was, back in the day, there was when Filthy Frank, the, you know, or Joji for those who do not know his old affiliation, when he stopped doing it, some guy came back to play the Frank character and made a whole channel about it, right? Whether or not he does it now, I don't fucking know. But, you know, he was one of these individuals who, before they said LARP was the term they gave him, was this guy who was playing this character for the reason that he enjoyed the content and wanted to make a very similar thing, right? And I think there's a whole bunch of shit with him. To what degree, I don't really know. I don't really care. But, you know, you have this situation now where people, there were those who were doing it for the right reasons, for doing it for fun and enjoying the content. And there are those who see the trend now and want to make very easy, very quick content and are like, oh, well, now I'm the fucking tuber. I want to make fucking commentary content, so I'm just going to steal it off someone else. And then it's really fun when the creators, the big creators, see the small creators, and then we get all the views, and it goes more and more into there, and, you know, we start creating shit content. Because the one thing we should be doing as those who create content online is creating absolute vile and just doing it for the fact that it's easy, right? And there are those who do. You know, there are those who do genuinely care about playing a character, and, you know, they'll go out of their way to replicate a very old way of these people, these YouTubers, these very old things that they use to make their old content, right? Because they want to do something similar. And to me, that's quite admirable. But it's those who create this LARPing content for the sake of getting free, easy views that stirs a little bit of dislike within me. You know, it is a very disappointing thing to see those out there in the space who, you know, may be very charismatic individuals placating to this degree because it's easy, because it makes views, you know, because it gets clicks. You know, being a YouTuber, for at least the original, like, stage of things, even for me being a podcaster, right? Not that I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast and I have a channel in X, Y, and Z. Well, you know what it is? Nope. It's difficult. It really is. It's difficult to build these platforms up, and you know, make content and do things. It takes a while. It takes a long time. Editing takes so fucking long, and making content often won't be seen by anyone, right? It's a very big gamble. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have my last episode when I said, when men talk politics, it makes me cream. It's done very, very well. That's particularly why I am making this episode now and trying to get it out and done and set out and good to go, right? It's because I need it done. And if I spend 15 hours tonight, I can get it done, right? Because it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, and making content's hard, and I understand, but to a degree, you know, you have to step on your own foot, right? You have to step on your own shoes and get the content you want done. Right. Well, you know, I'm going to have to cut this short because I'm so fucking hungry. I know I've complained so many times, but I'm so fucking hungry. If you want to get in contact, want to do some emails, want to send me through some stuff, send me an email over at latenightbarcade@gmail.com. There were like 160 of you who saw my last episode, and not one of you sent a goddamn email. Please, I'm begging you, just send me anything. Send me hate mail, for the love of God. All right? Send me things through. I would love to hear from you. If you don't want it brought up in the pod, just let me know. All right? Just say it in the email. P.S. Don't put this on the pod. Perfectly fine. I just want to hear what you have to say. But with that being said, this has been Late Night at the Barcade. I have been your host, Jhon. I can't wait to see you next week for the next finale. Technically not the finale, but the finale. What do I say before I end these things? Oh yeah! I've been your host, Jhon. Be bold, be brave, stay beautiful, people. Good night.